Welcome to the Commander 99 podcast. I'm Reed.
And I'm Austin.
And that was us.
Yeah.
So we're here today talking about, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the community, talking about, philosophy, deck, where the format's going to go. And, it affects a lot of people.
Well, I think for us, we want to talk about Commander as a format. We kind of want to talk about what it is that we do. I think we mentioned in our last podcast how we got our starts,
right.
Kind of the basics. And so from here, it's more like, what is our philosophy? What is our channel about? What type of content do we produce? Because we've mentioned at the beginning of videos of previous gameplays years ago that we have a particular set of league rules, kind of how we do things here at Commander 99. We focus heavily on that casual environment. We want to, entertain. We want to celebrate the interactive gameplay where, you're able to show off your deck and kind of play with whatever.
Yeah, I think that, we talked about that a while ago. And by a while ago, I think one of the first couple games that we were doing, we were talking about is this card in this deck? No, we don't. We try to stay away from that. And I know I mentioned it a couple times on my paper deck techs that I put out why I don't want to play certain cards. But for the most part, it is because our rules when we play, just for courtesy of each other.
Yeah, there are cards we don't play, and we still try to include them in deck techs because players, there's a wide variety of players out there.
Right.
So one of the things is that we have our own play style, so we focus on kind of playing a bit casually more than anything else. We try to keep our budget. Any card should be under $100. And then we obviously do moto gameplay as well, so we kind of keep our ticket range anywhere from like 30 to 70 tickets.
Right.
It really helps kind of by setting these like constraints, by making it to where like we have these perimeters. It kind of allows our creativity to flourish a bit, so we're able to be a little bit more creative with our card choice because we're not having access to every card in the game. Essentially we kind of limit ourselves a little bit, and that helps our deck building process, I think.
Yeah, I think that the only way that we would be able to come up with the decks that we do is by looking at certain cards and saying these cards are good, right? Mm-hmm. And then putting it upon ourselves to go, well, what are some other ways that we can get around that, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want every deck to be the exact same. Like, you could make a deck that just every single one of your decks wins the exact same way. I think that there are certain artifacts that let you do things like that. And for our viewership, it's more fun if we make a cool and interesting deck that doesn't win the same way every time.
Yeah,
definitely. I think that our constraints help us in that way.
Yeah, I found myself... one of my favorite parts about Commander is the variance. So every game should and can be different. Right. I play a lot of the same strategies. When it comes to building my decks, I focus heavily on creatures. I focus on like synergies, card draw, and that's just kind of my play style. Mm-hmm. So from there, it's like, what am I looking at when I'm sitting across the table from my opponents, and what am I thinking, like, how do I want them to have the best time possible? I'm trying to let them show off their decks as well as mine.
Right. And I think that a big part of any I would say any content producer's philosophy is we want to show the optimized deck out on the table that allows everyone to know exactly what's going on, because that's the point, right? And I think that it's it makes for fun gameplay too.
Yeah, the thing that makes this game so unique is that it's played in a 4-player format. I think like the politics of it and the conversation and the social aspect of the game is what I really enjoy, and so I want to be able to showcase the social nature and kind of talk with my opponents and try and figure out what cards I have in my hand that might help me get closer to winning, and my opponents obviously have unknown information too, and we kind of make deals essentially when we're playing.
Right, you'll hear us say it on Singleton Showdown a lot. The ongoing joke is don't hit me.
Yeah.
Right? So don't hit me. You might be threatening something, you might not. The social aspect of am I actually going to do anything if you hit me is kind of a big thing. And I think that a big part of anything with Commander is that those play styles, and there's just some, like you said in the beginning, there's some play styles that we don't want to impose on each other. I think
Correct.
that's a good way to put it.
Correct.
We spend a lot of time making content together, and I don't want to be in a situation where I throw out a card and you feel bad because it makes the game unfun.
Yeah, and we generally have guests on our channel pretty frequently. From other channels, we try to do collaborations, whether it's on our channel or whether it's on other channels. I frequent the EDH Lounge, so I'm playing with them, and there's kind of that social contract of certain things. And I've thrown out, when a guest comes on, it's kind of I tell them what it is we do, and how it is we focus on our gameplay. And I try to be a little bit more lenient with our guests because I watch their content as well. And so I have an idea of this is how they play. And so I want to adhere to their play styles as well and their budget.
Right. It makes it really hard for the deck to be accessible if every deck that we put out there has, 3 duels and mana crypt, mana vault, moxes, stuff like that. And you can make a deck without those and it still function well.
Yeah, we definitely go for I like to use the word optimized.
Right.
So when I'm explaining what decks I'm building, I build, competitive decks, and I kind of avoid some of the major social pitfalls, the things that you see come up regularly. So the first one we're going to talk about is mass land destruction.
Oof, mass land destruction.
Yeah.
That does not feel good.
No.
Ever. No. And that's coming from somebody who put sort of, you could argue it's mass land destruction from the ashes.
Yeah.
It in certain situations, that card wipes the board of all lands and doesn't give your opponents things. But in our, play group and stuff like that, I know you have basic lands in your deck. I know you're not running only non-basic lands, and so I know that using From the Ashes is a completely fair and just way to remove your problem non-basics.
Yeah, I feel the same way about a card like Ghost Quarter. So when it's a single target land destruction, I'm getting rid of the over, if you're playing Growing Rites of Itlamok and it flips into the Gaia's Cradle, Cabal Coffers. Yeah, just you want to exchange that resource, so you're go get a basic because I'm taking away something a little bit more powerful.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily one to say that just removing lands is an issue, because there's definitely decks that get away with, because that social contract says don't blow up all of my lands. You can just play as many lands as you want and win the game because you have 18 billion lands.
Yeah. I've
exaggeration, but
I've been in a gameplay where I was playing against a Jiraiya deck where they would suspend mass land destruction, so they would suspend a Ruination or Decree of Annihilation, and then they would be able to play it at a later turn, and I kind of held back from my playing most of my lands, and I had Mulch. So I just cast Mulch, and while everyone else was, having trouble dealing with resources, I was able to come back from that game. And I haven't had issues with being able to win through mass land destruction.
Right.
I played mass land destruction when I first started playing. I ran Armageddon, for example, in my Sliver Overlord deck, because you slam Overlord on turn 5, and then you run out Armageddon the next turn, and it's very difficult to deal with a 7/7 creature
when you don't have any way to respond.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key point with Maslin Destruction, at least for me. If you're going to win the game on the turn that you get rid of everybody's land so that they just can't respond to you, I don't feel bad about that. I mean, you got me, right? But it's not that sense of like I cast Sunder and put all lands back in hand, and I just wanted to be able to draw a couple more cards.
Yep.
Before this game got out of hand. That just never feels good to me.
Yeah, we're just trying to kind of talk about some of the things that we don't usually play, and
right.
that we've had examples where things can lead to this. So, for example, infinite combos is one of those things where we've seen combos, and we've played against channels where they've used combos, and it's not necessarily something that we disagree with, because we think like we've been wanting to discuss kind of convoluted combos at some point.
Right, that's a topic for another day, and I agree with you. Like, sometimes combos can be fun if, going back to that social contract that everyone loves talking about, I know you're playing combos before we sit down.
Yes, that's very important. That's one of the things, like, when I sit down, I'm like, okay, what's everyone playing? What's the power level? Is one of the common phrases that you hear. It's like, and then people kind of give a number, and then you kind of want to talk a little bit more,
right.
Extend that conversation, because like a blanket statement like power level can kind of say, oh, well, I'm playing a 7, and what that number means to one player can mean something to another.
Right. Your 7 could be like combos with tutors, it's optimized, and my 7 could mean you're running Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yeah.
Right.
So some of the like most common infinite combos that we've seen in the past that people have played is like Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond.
Right. That is, in my mind, I built a combo deck, and it's that one.
Well, I think it's a great way to like learn combos. You know what I mean? Like it's a great way to get your start. To be able to see if that you want to branch out into more competitive formats, because for us it's more about casual. We want to winning is obviously fun.
Right.
It's not everything for us. It's what we're doing. And how we're playing, and it's just about getting a good game in. And so if you know that people are playing combos, like sometimes games can run long,
right?
And so it's good to have that way to finish out the game so that we can kind of shuffle up and get on to the next one. But it's also something that you kind of need to be aware of going into the game.
Right. I know that when we go between building decks for play, and then like I have a variety of decks that I play in person, and I know you've seen them, and they vary from things that I would play on the channel because I enjoy playing those, and then I have I have 2 decks specifically that are designed just to play against more what most people classify as optimized. I class them as like lower level competitive, just kind of that mentality of I have shown up to win, and I'm going to get my combo, and I'm going to do that. And then I have all the way to the top. I have that super competitive EDH deck. I go non-traditional. I'm playing the Demir Lobotomist. It just, catch people off guard. But when I'm doing my deck building, I need to know that I can end the game. Yeah. And I think that's a big distinction is, do you want to end the game with a combo? Or do you want to end the game by having some big blowout turn and killing everybody?
Well, I think one of the things for me, when people are playing to win,
right,
which is something that you see in most other formats outside of Commander, it's like, when people are playing to win, it kind of takes away from that social nature of the game. It kind of makes people a little bit more defensive, kind of makes people play a little bit more to themselves, because they want to be able to not be transparent with what they've got. You know, if they've got one of their Kiki Jiki Pestermite pieces in hand and they've got a tutor for the other and they want to go grab it, it's like to win the game next turn, you are not going to televise that. I think there have been more than one occasions on a gameplay video where I'm just like, please don't attack me. I have all lands in hand.
Right, and then you just turn and there's like, I don't believe you, and they hit you, and you die, and it's just like, I'm gonna reveal my hand now. I have nothing.
Yep, I told you. You should have really, you know.
Right. I think that we've had multiple games online where it's just like, I'm telling you the truth. I mean, have you ever watched a CEDH game?
Yeah.
It's all or nothing. It's either nobody is talking. And they're just staring at each other. And I do this all the time because I play Control. You just sit there and you just stare at each other. And you try to get inside their head, right? But or you have one person at the table who's like super charismatic. And I've actually seen in CDH where the social nature comes in, but it's not in the way that you would want it to.
Yeah.
It's not discussing, you know, I'm not going to kill you. It's, hey, buddy, that person over there, they're about to win. You should kill them.
Yeah.
Right.
It's less a discussion of the game state.
Well, and then they kill you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everyone's paying attention and it's like, oh, I don't have anything. I promise. Palincron.
Yeah.
What? You know? So,
yeah.
I think that's a big thing about the infinite combos is it's not, at least when we're making content, it's not fun to watch someone blow out of nowhere.
Well, I think that's one of the things we create, like, on average, we try to aim for 30 minutes to an hour gameplay. Obviously, we don't want to wear ourselves out or wear out the audience. We want to keep your attention. And so when you're playing combos like that, you know, why did that game only last 15 minutes?
Right.
You know?
Because you combo.
Because you combo.
Right. And speaking of our like 30 minutes to like an hour and a half, we have had like 2-hour games. Yeah. And usually that leads up to our next thing that we kind of stay away from this.
Opposite effect when you play stacks and then you're slowing the game down to a crawl for each player.
Right. And there's definitely some things like lockout stacks we have definitely stayed away from.
I've been playing like stacks pieces that combine together, like where you need 5 or 6 stacks pieces all working in conjunction with one another in order to hopefully lock out your opponents but not stop you. So like, for example, Thalia, by increasing the cost of non-creature spells, or with the other Thalia by making non-basic lands and creatures enter tapped. You know.
Yeah, it's definitely like slow. I think it's referred to as like soft stacks.
Soft stacks.
That we sometimes play. I know that you've played like Daxos. And it was like a little bit soft stacks, a little bit just enchantment heavy. Yeah. You know, very, very unique to what you would normally see as a Daxos, besides the fact that enchantment was written on the top of it. Yeah. But I don't know how many games we've seen Vorin clicks hit the field, and that's the end of the game.
Yeah, because without a piece of interaction that costs less than, 4 mana, it's hard to come back from that, and you have to wait for your turn. So if you're the last player at the table and the other two want to be able to commit to the board in order to combat what my opponent is doing, because they now have double mana on top of that, it just kind of like gets out of control, and the game pretty much ends for the other 3 players.
I mean, that is like one way that stacks interacts. The worst that I've ever seen is when the person puts a stacks card down that hurts everybody except for the person winning.
Correct.
So like I have 100% seen Gaddock Teague get resolved, and then everyone, like one person like runs away because they have a creature deck and they don't care about non-creature spells, and the non-creature spell person's like, I could cast this Wrath of God and deal with this, but you got a Gaddock Teague. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. And then, like, for example, mono red, when you're playing Blood Moon,
right,
it doesn't affect you because non-basic lands being mountains means nothing.
Yeah, right.
You have mountains.
Just mountains have been had, but like you might be turning someone off of their color, and then suddenly they can't help by doing. I mean, we can rationalize not playing stacks all day, but essentially we stay away from the hard stacks because it leads to long, drawn-out gameplay. Everyone kind of gets burnt out on it. Yeah. That's all.
I think that's one of the things is, like, while we have a, positive outlook on most of the cards that are legal in Commander,
Right.
it's a way for us to really kind of, be a bit more creative, playing things that are different, things that you haven't seen played, because I've been playing since original Zendikar. I've been playing EDH when it was called EDH, sitting down at my Commander League, and so I've seen quite a few of these cards, pretty regularly.
Right.
And losing to like a particular set of cards or a single card, when an opponent gets to 6, 7, 8 mana,
Right.
it's not the best feeling in the world. It feels a little stale.
Right. It's that sense of someone says, I'm going to just play Merfolk. It's, Edric Merfolk, and I'm going to play a bunch of little Merfolk, and oh, by the way, here's the Triumph of the Hordes. Oh, well, you did that last game.
Yeah.
And the game before that, and the game before that. Yeah. The deck is just play Merfolk, and then I'm going to draw into my Triumph of the Hordes, and I'm just going to kill you that way.
Yeah.
Do you have a backup plan? Nope. And it's linear gameplay.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of decks are kind of built that way. Commanders in particular, when you sit down and see one, you're going to see some linear gameplay. It's not uncommon, but it kind of like you want to bring some fresh a fresh take on the build.
And I think that, like, it's interesting once, but like if you play one deck and that one deck has one way to win, and you play that one deck with one way to win multiple times, it's going to reach a point where I'm like, hey, I've got other decks if you want to try something new.
Usually what I found myself is that when the strategies lean into what I'm doing, so for example, arcades, when you're playing a card like Tower Defense,
Right.
It's a single player elimination, but it's only something that can be played in a defender deck.
Right, but there's like 3 different cards that are the exact same as
Yeah.
Tower Defense, and so honestly, if you Tower Defense me, that's one of like 3 ways you could do it. Whereas like if you overload a Cyclonic Rift,
Yeah.
right, that's really the only card that does that.
Yeah, and it's a card that can be played in all of blue.
Right.
That's the thing.
The most controlling color
Yeah.
gets the most controlling card. So the single card out of nowhere wins. We try to stay away from them just because it's cool to see an underdog story, but most of the time it's not an underdog story.
Yeah.
Most of the time when you see us playing, it's going to be whoever's in first plays Cyclonic Rift and then wins.
Yeah, because it's got that level of interaction that, like, unless you counter it, returning all your permanents back to your hand, usually a lot of people spend the time
You have to rebuild the next 2
rebuilding.
turns.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you're playing against blue, now they have a bunch of counter spells probably to deal with it.
Yeah, and so they're getting these extra resources and this extra time to be able to rebuild their board state that you don't have. So it's almost like giving yourself some extra turns by being able to, have your cards not go away.
Right. You set everyone else back, and you accelerate yourself forward, just like casting an extra turn card. And I think that the biggest one that we just stay away from is everyone's big bad boogeyman when it comes to extra turns is expropriate.
Yeah, expropriate is one of those, like, the voting process has been a topic of discussion.
It's not really a vote, though.
Yeah.
Because you basically have to say, yes, you get an extra turn and a permanent from each player. Because otherwise, like, would you like 4 extra turns? Would that be good for you?
It'd be okay.
All right, cool. I mean, like, you win the game probably.
Yeah.
And if you don't, like, I'm really confused.
Well,
Well,
I think that kind of brings us with Time Stretch, for example, because it doesn't exile itself after being cast. It's one of those spells that you can kind of abuse during one of your extra turns. You can use an Archaeomancer to bring it back from the bin. Any number of sorcery recursion from your graveyard, and if people don't have access to Graveyard Hate or the mana to respond in turn, it can kind of help you run away with the game.
Right, and I think that the key there with the I was going to say the extra turns, but the time stretch. The key with the time stretch is it gives you the 2 turns. Normally with like a time warp,
Yeah.
you gotta use a resource to get the time warp, to cast the time warp, to repeat the process if you want to take infinite extra turns. But like with time stretch, it's pretty easy to just get that card back within 2 turns.
Yeah, and we're here to play with 3 other players.
Right, like. It reaches a point where extra turns become solitaire. Same thing with like infinite combos. But if every game is taking 2 hours because, I'm sitting here and going, and I draw a card and I play a card and I draw a card and I play a card and I draw a card and I play a card, it, becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. The only other one within the extra turns is taking everybody else's turns. That is even less fun than watching somebody constantly take extra turns.
Yeah.
Is sitting there and going, now you actually don't get to play Magic. I'm going to play it for you.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, like, in regards to extra turns, I kind of like, I don't really focus on, like, okay, taking extra turns is one of those things where you don't want to abuse it. And
right.
The same with a card like Mindslaver or a card like Emrakul. It's like you want to be able to use that effect once, and it's reasonable, within reason. You use it to press your advantage, to make your opponent waste their resources on the other players, or to build up your board state and then pass.
Right. I've used the Miracle extra turn spell as a rampant growth before. I've literally been like, all right, I'm gonna cast this, play a land, pass to myself, and I'm gonna play a land and a solemn. Did you just do nothing on your extra turn?
Yeah.
No. I played a land. Mm-hmm. That's it. Don't worry about it. And it's gone now. It's exiled. It's whoop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like nobody feels bad about that. But I think it all boils down to what I said earlier with the social contract.
Yeah.
Like we have agreed that we are doing this, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to show up to an LGS and be like, no, this is the way that we play.
Yeah. So right? You should play the same way.
You should play the exact same way. It's just how we build our decks and how we play, because of the environment that we're playing in.
Exactly. We're playing for a particular type of environment. We're playing to entertain, and when you go to a Magic Fest, or you go to your local game store, your game store is going to have leagues, and they're going to have points, and you're going to find ways to accrue points or to win the games to get prizes. I think, when there's something at stake, you find yourself, and I'm more accepting of this when it comes to playing combos, playing extra turns. It's like, well, I'm trying to achieve something at the end of the day.
Right. And whenever something is on the line, it becomes acceptable to be more cutthroat.
Yeah.
And that's what it boils down to, is that we have essentially 3 different play environments that are developing in the Commander community. You have the casual environment, which is me, you, Jonathan, Charles want to sit down, play a game of Commander, and just have fun and knock back a couple drinks, and then that's also the environment that you bring in the new players.
The new players, the kitchen table, where you're playing casually and you don't, want to invest a lot in the game. You just want to play with your friends they enjoy it.
What's the term for the players that focus on mechanics and artists?
Volros is that?
Volros is one.
Timmy and
Melvin or whatever it is.
Okay.
There's terms out there, but yeah, it's the I want to sit down, I want to play a game of Commander, I want it to take 2 hours, and I want to have fun and laugh the entire time. Oh man, you played a big 8/8. Cool, let's do this.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna smash my 7/7 into it. Oh, you didn't see this one coming. Here's my giant growth. That's kind of that casual environment that's kind of popping up. And then you've got, like you said, the league environment that's popping up, where something's on the line and I'm going to win, because that's what's important. It's not the game. It's going and competing with other people. Yeah.
And when I first started playing the game, I was in a Commander league, and a lot of people around me were playing combos, and I focused heavily on an aggro deck. I was playing creature-based, and so I found myself running more counter spells to kind of combat their combos, so I could lay down my big scary creatures while I'm still, turning sideways, and they're playing, infinite combos, and I'm hoping to combat to win. I want to win.
Right. And I think that league environment can pop up at your LGS too.
Yeah.
Without the league, you know, you show up and you don't want to get smashed.
Yeah.
Right. You want to be included in it. And I think that's also where that kind of grows out of. It's still a competition, but
Correct.
It's a competition of I don't want to get left behind.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to enter a tournament to play with that league mentality. You know?
Right. And then, of course, up at the top, you've got the CDH players.
Yes.
So the ones that these decks have been carefully crafted. A lot of thought has been gone into the very intricacies of it. And, I mean, something that's very interesting is if you take a casual deck and you put it up against a CDH deck, there's definitely some cards that just become useless in that CDH deck.
Yeah.
You know, Carpet of Flowers is only good if people are playing blue, and CDH, most people play blue. And if you sit down at a table and everyone's playing red, green, white, black, your Carpet of Flowers is now a dead card.
Correct.
You know? And so it's a completely different deck building.
It is. It's an entirely different environment. You know, it's interactions and redraws to tutor up that combo piece to find exactly, you know, the lowest, most efficient way to win.
And it's not the interesting thing about it is it's not a different format.
No,
it's a different environment that is being played, and I think that's fascinating. That's I don't know. I'm weird like that. That's fascinating to me that there's different environments and different like different bubbles of society that are forming around Commander.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like heading back to the idea of the conversation to be had when you sit down. You know, you know when you're playing CDH.
Right.
You
sit down. Are we playing CDH here?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go. Right. It's there's not, like I said, you're either talking or you're not. Mm-hmm. It's very polarizing.
Yeah, there's definitely you know, the conversation that kind of focuses on like passing priority.
Right.
You know,
hold on, it's not your turn. Right.
Yeah, you focus very heavily on the mechanics of the game, and then the, you know, proceed to combat. You know, you mention every single step so that each card can be played, you know, very meticulously.
Right, and the worst thing for a CDH player is the person right here.
Yeah.
Right, because the person, best poker face in the world, person back here. Right.
Yeah.
And suddenly all of your plans are out the window. It's an interesting social interaction, but you need to state when you sit down that's happening. CDH players do it all the time.
Yeah.
We're playing CDH.
Correct.
I literally heard it in my LGS the other night. Someone was like, hey, yo, can I jump in? You guys need a fourth, right? We're not at your power level. Not to be a jerk, we're not playing at your power level. You're welcome to join. You will not have fun.
Yeah.
And that was literally the end of the conversation. The guy went off and sat at a different table and played with a different group, and they sat and they played CDH. I watched them play CDH. Right?
just having the conversation, being as transparent as possible before the game. That's one of the things that's most important. That's one of the things we kind of wanted to touch up on.
Right.
We wanted to talk about all this where it's good to communicate, and so we're kind of talking with our audience and kind of explaining what it is that we want to get out of the game, so that when you're watching our content going forward, you can kind of see that, you know, that casual play style, that entertaining aspect to the game, and you know, hopefully you enjoy what we have to bring, you know.
Right. We want to hear your opinion as much as you want to hear ours.
Yeah.
Because while we've been playing for a while, we obviously make mistakes, and we also like only have each other to talk to at this point. So it's important. You know, comment back, tell us what you think of the situation. Tell us, you know, did we miss something? Is there another perspective to see this from? I think that's always important to see it from as many perspectives as possible. So
yeah, just tell us what type of play style you go for. You know, are you a CDH player? Are you a casual player? You know, what type of decks do you like to play? Any anecdote that you might have, you know, bring it to the table. Because we're here to listen. We're here to grow. You know, and that's pretty much it.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for watching, and
we'll see you next time.